welcome to the next episode of Flintco Talks. Again, my name's Daniel Oates, 21-year veteran here at Flintco. Super excited to be here with my brother Bill Hart, another member of the APG team. Again, we started this podcast to be able to talk about mental health and the role it plays in our industry and how it is important to us to understand it, to recognize when there are issues or when one of your direct reports is having some challenges, how to be able to help them develop coping mechanisms to get from here to there, to get back into an empowered zone where they can perform at a high level. So I'd like to welcome Bill Hart here today. Bill, thanks for being in the studio with us, and tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, your time as a SEAL, and kind of what you've done since you've been out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, really cool to get out here with you guys, and we really appreciate you guys bringing us in on this product. So yeah, me, I was in the Navy from 1992 to 2012. I enlisted with the express intent of getting into the SEAL teams, and spent 20 years there. Did a bunch of stuff, some really cool stuff, some very uncomfortable stuff, and unfortunately, you know, this kind of self-preservation talk that we're putting together here, I have an undue amount of experience with this kind of a thing. I probably have as many dead friends in my phone as live friends in my phone, and a good few of those, as we say, punched their own ticket. And we can talk to some of that, I guess, a little bit. But then further down the line, I actually had my oldest son, my firstborn son, took his own life, and that was a real downer. You know, I guess, how can you say, you know, it's one of those things like you never think it's going to happen to you, you know? So we can talk about this stuff, but kind of like everything, you know, with my experience in the teams, is there's a lot of heavy things, there's a lot of very consequential things, and I guess like a lot of guys in the community, I talk about it almost nonchalantly, a kind of a cavalier attitude, if you like. But that doesn't mean, you know, that I think of it nonchalantly. I mean, you take a lot of lessons away from this. So I hope, you know, people listening to this or watching it wouldn't think that I think lightly of any of this. It's definitely worth coming all the way out here and talking through some of these things. But yeah, in terms of some of the things that I've seen go down, I had one guy that I worked really closely with, and he was part of the experimental dive unit. And experimental dive unit, I guess, this is a place down in Florida where they bring guys and they do all kinds of experimental things to them to see how much your body can withstand. And he ended up with some pretty extensive nerve damage. And I don't know the details of it, but I guess the long and short is like nerves in your body will off and on feel like they're literally on fire. Mm-hmm. So this guy just checked out. He was done. And I had another guy I worked with that he had kind of a breakdown, just deployments, just going, and just kind of out of nowhere, just came off the rails. And the thing with the community, and you know, some people in the community will say, no, it's not like that. We take care of our guys, and it is what it is, man. You know, when you're pushing hard, going hard, deploying, operating, running, and a guy says, hey, I need to take a knee, man. I'm having an issue, and it'll be like, great, have your issue, but have it over there someplace, and get your stuff out of your cage. We got a guy coming in. You know, so a guy is just, you're kind of ostracized. And that guy, same thing, man, just didn't have a place in the circle, if you like, and he checked out. And I think that's kind of something that needs to be driven home, that before it gets to that kind of a point, that people need to feel like, look, we could handle this, we need to address this, we need to develop, I think, like had been discussed before, like a sense of community where, you know, before you find yourself, you know, in the rubber room or something, you know, before it's these official phone calls and sit down and check some boxes on a form or some kind of a thing, like, let's talk about some steps before it gets to that, you know, to that point. There's something to be said for that, I think.
I love that thought, Bill. I love the thought of how we can develop kind of a list that we can look at and understand and be aware when somebody's in this situation, right? And be a friend, be somebody to help lift them up. So I wanted to start with kind of how you would define mental health. When somebody says mental health, what is Bill Hart? What comes in your mind and say, man, this is what it means to me?
Well, you talk about, first, anytime you talk about mental health, I mean, that's going to be a turnoff to 99.9% of people, because they instantly think of, Sigmund Freud with a sports coat with the padded elbows, and he's going to sit there and ask you about your mother. I don't have time for this, all right? I'm not interested in any of that. That's not what this is about, and not what it needs to be about. It doesn't need to be that kind of a stigma, if you will. My kind of understanding and experience and training and such with the mental health side, if you will, about halfway through my career, I shifted over to the intel side, and I did the Iraq thing once. I was on that initial invasion in 2003, and then right before I went back in 2006, there was an issue where they were getting a lot of what they call dry holes. So this would be where you would go on a target. Somebody says Carlos the Jackal is hiding out in whatever village at a house at the corner by the the market or whatever. You go there and nobody's there, or there are people there, and they're like, well, no, my name's not Carlos the Jackal. Well, what is your name? I'm Abu Muhammad. You got an ID? No, nobody there has ID. So you're going around, and then you ask the women or kids, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, and nobody knows anything. Suddenly everybody's got amnesia. So dry hole, you get nothing. And so they said, well, all right, we need to develop a skill set where somebody's going to develop a kind of a program. You're going to have a way of talking to these people, figuring out who's who in the zoo. We're going to have to assign a guy to do this kind of thing. And that guy's you. And I'm like, me? I'm like, what do I know about that? I don't want to do this. And they said, well, get a book. And I was like, a book? I don't know anything about this. So, I'm getting assigned this kind of extra work, if you like, and I was like, I should be getting college credit for this. I should be getting something. And I talked to they have education counselors in the military, and I said, hey, this is what I got stuck doing. What does this sound like? Anything? What can I do here to get God, what can I get for myself out of this? And they said, well, this sounds like a psychology kind of a thing. And I was like, psychology? You mean like the guy with the pad and the pipe and the pad? Tell me about your mother. Like, yeah, just check it out. So I started down that road, and I ended up finishing a master's degree in general psychology. And I mean, really, you can't beat on it enough, to say that it's not laying on a couch, it's not talking to a guy with a notepad. It's like your physical health, just you can't see it. It's what goes on up here. So the same way that we talk with clients like Flintco, or we talk with professional athletes, or like what you see in special operations. A lot of what determines success or failure is what happens up here. Being physically strong, physically capable, physically healthy, this is good. Mentally healthy, this is equally, if not more, important. But you can't see it, so nobody thinks of it. So, if you think of it as, well, then what is it exactly? It's like, it's the part of you that you can't see. It's the thing that goes hand in hand with your healthy body. It's your healthy mind. All right? So whatever helps you get down the road, whatever proves beneficial, whatever makes you stronger, not what makes you weaker. And I think people are too quick to, to say, as long as you don't have a problem, or as long as your problem is something that we can ignore, or something we can gut it out through, or something I can hand you a pill and make you forget about, then it's fine. It's not a problem. You're healthy. You're good. Off you go.
So that's a great definition, right? Because everybody is able to see physical ability. Everybody's able to see, if you're huffing and puffing when you climb 2 sets of stairs, or if you can get up there, no problem. But it's only you can really understand what's going on in your mind most of the time, right? Why do you feel like maybe it gets overlooked so easily?
It's like anything, you can't see it. It's like credit card debt. You can't see it. So if I just don't look at it, then it's not really there. And I mean, how many people are prescribed psych drugs at this point? I mean, I saw a thing, I don't remember what it was even on, and maybe it was like one of these little kook videos that you see here and there, but it was like a group of women, and they're talking about the meds that each of them are on, and then one of them is talking about her mother, and she's like, "Look at her though, just raw dogging it through life." And like, no, it's a normal person. She's just going through life without, this chemical this chemical assistance. But I mean, for somebody that you need meds for X, Y, or Z, do what you're supposed to do. Take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. But never at the expense of addressing a legitimate issue. So, I mean, physically, if you had, say you had a broken leg, you go, well, I take this morphine, I can't feel the leg now. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that doesn't really solve the problem, does it?
It's a Band-Aid.
Right? It's not even a Band-Aid. Like, this is going to get worse as it goes along. So you just taking this pill isn't going to fix things. But, you can't see it, so as long as, I can't see it and I can take this pill and forget all about it, now how easy is that to just drag it on? It gets worse, worse, worse.
Why do you think we overlook it? I understand that you can't see it, but why do you think? Do you think it's because we have a hard time expressing when we're having issues, or do you think it's if I tell you, "Hey, Bill, man, something's going on in my life," it's easier for you to just say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry," and let's just move on? Or do you feel like there's a lack of care in the world, and there needs to be more care in the world? Or
well, I'll tell you. How can I say? There's I know a guy that I worked with a long while back, and he had started doing some of the same, no, not exactly the same, but sort of similar work like what we do, doing executive coaching, like a smaller scale. I don't know, how do you say, like a more boutique kind of works with individual executives in smaller companies and such. And he put out a video, and I had to call the guy up and say, well, hold on now. What exactly are you talking about here? Because he's talking about, in this video, he's talking about how do you address toxic attitudes among top performers? And I say, okay, so you want to talk about toxic attitudes, you want to talk about people that maybe are, or to what degree, or how can they be fixed in terms of their toxicity or the way they affect the people around them. But at the same time, you're talking about top performers. So in saying top performers, you've already kind of defined exactly what it is you want. You're saying, well, this is what I want, and you're the best guy at it. But now you want to like rewind and say, but I just don't like this over here. You're a problem child. Okay, well, no, he's not really a problem child because he's giving you exactly what you want. So I think it kind of necessitates a little bit of like a rewind. Like, let's step back a little bit and ask yourself, well, exactly what is it that you want? Because if we say, well, golly, how is it that this kind of situation gets overlooked, or it becomes increasingly prevalent when it really is a priority and I really do care? Okay, but do you? Because what is your priority? And that's not to knock anybody. That's just to say, well, slow down, rewind a little bit. What exactly are you focusing on? It's kind of like when mom comes to a kid and says, hey, you need to clean your room, you need to start doing your homework, you need to behave as directed. And eventually she has to up the stakes and say, hey, you don't do these things, you're gonna lose PlayStation, you're gonna catch a beating, whatever it is you're gonna get. And the kid says, oh, I don't want that. But you doing the things you do tells me that you exactly want that, because this is what's at the end of this road. You're going to get what is coming down the road to you. So it kind of warrants, taking a step back in a bigger picture sense and saying, what do we want? What are we actually all here for? So at a company like this, yeah, you're here to construct, you're here to develop relationships with clients, and everybody here's got their individual thing that they're here to do. Maybe there's somebody here that's in here to write advertisements or develop marketing. Mm-hmm. This is something that every company needs. But why are you really doing this? If you weren't getting paid, would you still show up here and do this? For most people, probably not. So what are you here to do? You're here to stay alive, and what is staying alive? Are you alive just to work, or are you alive for something else? And in this culture, I think we lose track of that kind of thing a little bit. It becomes very, very easy to, for as tolerant as Americans will insist that they are, the thing that they're not tolerant of is people that are deviating from the accepted program. And the accepted program in our culture is work, 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 work.
Mm-hmm. No, that's exactly right. I mean, I feel like what you said kind of hits the nail on the head. And yeah, I don't know that I would show up here if I wasn't getting paid, right? It's easy to get distracted by the things that we think are important in the construction business, whether it's profits, whether it's safety, whether it's finishing the job on time. All of those things play into the risk assessment that we look at when we're going to look at a job, when really our top asset is the people, right? And understanding what the people are capable of doing, what they are doing, how they're feeling. Are they showing up just to get a paycheck, or are they showing up because they love working here, right? Do they enjoy the community, right? Does Flintco do a good job creating community? Do our people do a good job living by the ethos and do a good job holding each other up, or are we tearing each other down, which is making the community worse, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's not incumbent on any company anywhere to say, hey, Joe employee, I'm going to make sure you have a friends and family, It's not it's not a company's job to make sure you know how to make friends. But really in our culture, in this country, if you will, having friends, having something to do, having an identity besides your work. You see, when you meet somebody, what's the first thing that people ask? What do you do? That's the most important thing. Not what are you about? Do I have anything in common with you? If we don't have anything in common, is there something I can learn from you? Because we really do get wrapped up in just your thing. And that's what's really cool about our job is I get to interact with all kinds of different people. What do I know from construction? Nothing. But I hang out with you guys. I hear about how it goes, how the feel of it all is. Get to hang out with pro athletes once in a while, and that's for better or worse. It is what it is. But we get to hang out with a lot of different people and see a lot of different sides of life, things that I never thought I would, give any thought to. But you meet somebody, you talk to somebody, it's worth asking them a little bit more than, hey, what do you do? And that's the kind of thing I think that starts small. A person can. You're not going to take it for granted. Nobody's going to. You don't learn how to do that anymore as a kid. What do you learn as a kid? Shut up, do your homework. That's really all you learn. You don't learn there's other people out there. Some people are jocks, some people are nerds, some people are. They do whatever they do. Mm-hmm. But go check them out. It doesn't mean that they're not cool. You can't be friends. Go talk to them. I think some of the most memorable experiences I've had, honestly, were just being in small, weird situations that were not something I would have ever expected to find myself in. I watched part of the Cricket World Championships at a Sri Lankan guy's house. The guy didn't even have windows in his house. And I felt bad because he had a teenage daughter, and I don't think she owns shoes, but she had a lot of mosquito bites on her legs, and she was kind of hiding her legs under the chair. And one of my friends who'd been to this part of the world a few times noticed. He was like, yeah, she's just embarrassed, man. She's kind of hiding her legs. And it's a trip to just see, the way people live that you're not accustomed to being around all the time. But it takes effort, though. Hey, go talk to that person over there. You don't know anything about them.
Yeah, I think what you said I want to key in on is identity, right? Mm-hmm. And is your identity created by you, or are you forced into an identity based on what you think you should be, right? And I feel like as you get to know your direct reports, or you get to know whoever your supervisor is, understanding their identity and checking in on it from time to time, right? Mm-hmm. When I get in, Monday morning, I'll stop and talk to, the different folks in our office, and I know that, this person likes to hike. I know this person likes to paddleboard, and when I check in with them and they're saying, yeah, I didn't do anything this weekend, or yeah, we just sat around. It's kind of that's an indicator to me that hey, who you are is not going on. What's happening in your life that's driving you not to do the things that you love. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is what are some factors that can lead to mental health issues, right? There's so many different things that play into mental health. I mean, from what your emotional skills are, just who you are as a person, who you were born as, what your genetics are, maybe how you were raised, how your parents, treated you when you made mistakes, how you were punished. really what maybe the social or whatever economic environment you're in, what are the things that you see lead to issues, mental health issues in someone's life?
Yeah, so, when you say issues, I think we got to narrow this down to like, what makes it so that you can't get through your life successfully? And in fairness, I think it almost warrants taking even a step back even further and say that, like, look, you're not going to live forever. Like, there's not a way that this story ends well. At some point, you're going to go away. You're going to leave this party. All right. So, as we all get older and you see more people get to that stage of their life, you kind of have to, you don't want to look at it, but it is what it is, man. And the things that inhibit you getting from here to there as best you can, accomplishing the things you want to accomplish, experiencing the things you can, that you want to experience, passing on the things you want to be able to pass on, whether that's to your friends, to your family, any of this kind of thing, your colleagues, the things that inhibit you up here, these are mental health issues. And I say it that way because, like you say, kind of the way that you are, I think that's a huge piece of it. So me, like the people that know me, like I tend to run like really negative. I'm always like the guy looking for the fly in the ointment, the monkey in the wrench, right? What's the problem? What's the problem? What's the problem? And so just being that way, I'm always like, what's wrong in this picture? What's wrong here? I'm just that way. Mm-hmm. What do you want? So, when you see like a rock star dies of a heroin overdose or something, and how many times do you hear people say like, oh man, if I had that kind of money, if I had that kind of talent, I'd never do that.
Right.
But now if you think of that Sri Lankan guy watching cricket in the room with no windows, what do you think that guy says about you? Oh man, if I lived in America, if I had a job like that, I'd never have a bad day in my life. But do you ever have a bad day in your life? Of course you do. Mm-hmm. So I think at the end of the day, the takeaway is that you are how you are. You're going to be how you are. That's all right. You can be what other people perceive as a little negative. You can be Susie Sunshine if that's how you are. You can go between if that's how you are. But you got to kind of look yourself like, is there anything going on in the way I'm approaching this, the way I'm seeing this, that's going to really inhibit me? So when we start looking at that, then what are some things that can really inhibit you in one way or the other? And in that sense, I think you can look at just the way things are out there. I mean, I think if I had one big message to push here, it would be that it ain't just you, man. It ain't just you.
Right.
I mean, look outside. It sucks out there.
Yeah, right? It's tough, right?
Yeah. And, and it goes both ways. So one, if you're seeing somebody and you're like, I'm not sure, Dano seems he's on hard times. I don't know, maybe I'm just seeing it. Maybe it's only me. It ain't just you. All right, somebody else has probably noticed that too. If you noticed it, probably someone else noticed. And maybe you should say something then. And even if you're kind of an introvert, and Dano's on hard times, but I'm just not the kind of guy, I don't talk to people. So maybe I should go to somebody else and like, hey, what do you think, man? You think maybe Dano, somebody ought to say something? Because it's not just you. But apart from that, for the people that are kind of feeling the heat or feeling a little bit of pressure, I mean, it's not just you. It's tough out there. I saw a couple things I just saw. I saw one thing that Kevin, that's with us, it was the Big Mac index. He gets into the finance and the economics. He's Mr. Stock Market guy. And I can't follow half of what he's saying. He shows me, the graph with the little candlestick thing. Like he's explained it like 5 times to me. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Still can't get it.
I just kind of do this, like, yeah, time to buy. All right. And I don't know what he's doing, but so he sent me this thing called the Big Mac index. And the way this works is it's telling you like how much your money is not worth now based on the price of a Big Mac. So they're figuring in like, and these economist types, they get into it and they give you more details than I can possibly digest, but they're talking about consumer price index versus inflation versus, the value of the dollar over time versus the cost of materials and labor to build a Big Mac and for you to buy it, But long and short, like you're not getting as many Big Macs for your dollar today as you were in, I think it's like 1985 when they started tracking this. So I mean, if you could talk about your house or your car, or but your car has Wi-Fi in it now, and your car can actually make you a cup of coffee. Like, let's look at Big Macs. That's easy. All right. So it's tough out there, Big Macs wise, and that extends to everything, man. I mean, like when your folks would say, I mean, my folks, I'm old enough to be when they were like, hey, just go down the street and get a job. You try to just go down the street and get a job now.
Yeah.
Without knowing, like, you got to have like, a whole LinkedIn profile to go make a cup of coffee at this point, right? I need like a college degree and a solid resume and, a LinkedIn profile with 5,000 friends. And now maybe I get an interview, but maybe I don't get anything because I don't know the right people, but it's tough out there. Specific to this argument though, when you're talking about people just deciding like, I can't take any more of this, I've had it, this, again, it ain't just you. It's tough out there. And they've got in Canada, I just read about this, they've got what's called the MAID program, MAID, Medical Assistance in Death. So doctor-assisted suicide, long and short. And this is so prevalent there. Like how many news stories in a day do you see about gun-related violence in the U.S.? A lot. Right?
More than you'd want to.
More than you want to. I mean, you don't want to see any, right? But you see it every day. So in Canada, the rate of medical assisted suicide is 38 per 100,000 in 2022.
Wow.
In the U.S., the rate of death by firearm is, I believe, was 15 per 100,000 in 2022. And that's counting self-inflicted injuries and justified shootings. So somebody's breaking into your house and you burn them down, that's justified, but it still counts. If you take away self-inflicted injury, suicide by firearm, then you're at 7.5, 8 per 100,000. So I'm no math genius, but the 38 per 100,000 medical assisted suicides in Canada compared to 7.5, what is that? That's like 5 times and change. So,
5 and a little bit, yeah.
So you look around like, yeah, people are kind of being left without. So like, find me another species on this planet that just up and decides like, yeah, I'm just done, I'm checking out. So what the hell is going on out there? And that's not to say that anybody should hear this and like, oh, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But perhaps, maybe what you've been told since you were small, maybe what you've had pumped into your head this whole time isn't quite serving your best interests. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you could have, if I was me now telling me 15 years ago, 20 years ago, any of this, I would have shined it right on probably and be like, hey man, I'm doing important stuff. I'm a Navy SEAL. I'm somebody, I'm Secret Squirrel in here. And I could say without a doubt that like the minute you leave, there's another guy moving his gear into that cage. He's going to fill into the job you were just doing. They can train monkeys to fly into space, man. They can replace you. All right. You ain't that important. Right. And it sucks because it really hit home, man. I lost my son who took his own life 12 years ago. And I mean, I've had, like I said, I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost a lot of people that I knew, that I was acquainted with, but nothing sucks like that. That's the worst thing that can happen to a person. I have no doubt. But, when I went back then, because when this happened, I already had retirement papers in. So at the time, I was getting divorced. I had a negative net worth. Like I had maxed out credit cards. I had nowhere to live. I didn't own a vehicle. I didn't own a cell phone. I didn't have anything. And then I lose my son. So I was in a bad way. And I went to the community and I went to the management. And I said, hey, look, man, this is where I'm at. I said, I've done for the community. I went back to back, pumps. I was overseas doing the thing. And I said, this is where I'm at, man, and I'm in bad shape. If I can, I need to pull my retirement papers. I need to stick around. I'll do a desk job. I'll do whatever job you need. I'll work for you, man. I just need some time to get my life sifted out. Because when I got back off of my last deployment, I didn't even have a valid driver's license. I had been just gone. Like, I'm in other world. And the guy says to me, like, well, if you take what is essentially the worst job I can find, like the hard to fill overseas by yourself at a desk, like making sure, the proper cars get rented or a guy's got a hotel room when he comes to this country, you take this job, and then we'll do that. But otherwise, I'm sorry, not you okay, not brother, do you need anything? Not much I can do for you.
Wow.
Now, I could say it's just that guy, but having talked to other guys, it's the same thing. I talked to a guy that was a dog handler, and it was the same thing because this is a very valuable tool, and this is a guy that's really good at it. So the guy comes back, and they're just pumping him, go. Like, you're back out, no, you're gone again. And he came back, and it was the same thing. Like, I can't sleep. I'm hearing voices. I need a minute. A minute? What's his minute? What? No. Get your stuff, get out. We got another guy. He'll go. So when how can you say? You want to develop a community that's like, yeah, we take care of our people because they take care of us, but it's very, very easy. And that was something we saw a lot of in the military. It's very, very easy for a guy to say, well, like, yeah, you're missing Christmas? You're missing your kid's birthday? I've missed 5 Christmases. I missed all my kids' birthday. Up yours. Get to work. You see it again and again and again. And it's easy to find myself doing it, when a guy is like, even guys I work with, like Mark, who, Mark, and he's very particular about it. He wants to be there for events in his kid's life. And I'm on kid number 6 now. So I'm like, hey, you just call me when you're graduating from college, when you got a place of your own. Then I'll stop by with like a sandwich or something. But he likes to be there for things in his kid's life, and I'm like, I find myself saying, like, first day of school, there'll be more days of school. How many days of school do you think I missed with and then I got to check myself, like, yeah, just because, you had some miserable things happen doesn't mean you got to put it on somebody else.
Mm-hmm. That's part of change in the community, right? It's a paradigm shift to be someone that's going to, when you have the opportunity to lift somebody up or give them a break or say, hey, look, if this is important to you, it's important to me, and let's make it happen. Or you can be there, which is I'm sure you do for Mark and Kevin and the other guys that work for y'all when it's time to do some family time, you honor that and allow that. If you could go back and talk about some of your friends or that have checked out, what are some things that you feel like, some indicators maybe you saw or maybe in hindsight you saw, that can help educate our listeners, educate the folks at Flintco on being able to pick those things out. Kevin talked about having the absence of indicators, right? When you realize people are slowly checking out and aren't really enjoying what they're doing, sometimes that's more prevalent than maybe what the standard indicators are. What are some pieces of advice you could give us to look for to when we know we've got to jump in and help lift somebody up?
Oh, man. All the textbook stuff, just chronically depressed, like I got nothing to live for. I've seen, some stuff where guys are, giving things away, like, hey, man, I want you to have this, because they're not planning on being here. I think it's starting down that road. When you see some of this stuff, I'd say when you see some of these textbook indicators, like we talked about, you got to speak up. If you're listening, it's on you, man. Like, you owe it to this person. Speak up, step in. Don't put yourself in a spot where you're like, oh, I should have said something, Well, what if? I say that, I still say that kind of thing to myself, about having lost a son that, oh man, what if? But where something needed to change was not that day. It was not a week before, maybe a year before, maybe 2 years before. That's where something needed to be different. And what is that, what does different need to be in that case? Because like with the guys that I knew, the team guys that checked out, they a lot of what you see was that just kind of being robbed of your identity. Because especially in that community, and I don't know how it is in the construction community, if guys kind of start down that same road where you're like, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I'm about. When you're in that scene, in the SEAL teams, and you're like, I'm an operator, man, I do this thing, this is what I'm about, this is what I am when I go to bed, what I am when I wake up, and when I go eat a sandwich, it's an operator sandwich, and this is the thing, right? But when you suddenly, that's like gone, poof, now what are you? Now you're not anything. You're just a guy with a name. You're just not anything. You're a guy that used to be an operator. Like what is that? Like when you're an ex something, like how do you define yourself? Oh, I'm an ex frogman. Like that sucks. Like but what are you now? I mean, now, yeah, I was a SEAL team guy for a long time. Cool. Now I'm a guy that just talks too much. And there's, it's not quite as cool, but you gotta be something. So when you see a guy that's like that, if you recognize it, like this is maybe, in this community, you got a guy that was, I don't know what, a specialist in some capacity, but now he breaks an arm, breaks a leg, hurts his back, and he's got to sit it out. That's somebody you can probably expect who might have an issue or two. The guy that seemed like the strongest, or girl, but it seemed like the strongest, the most capable. I would have never expected that. Well, why not? Because that person was just robbed of their identity. Mm-hmm. And I'm not putting this guy's business in the street. This is something that's been public. But Mike Day, the guy that I don't know if you had heard about this guy previously. Mike Day was he was an operator with the team that replaced my team. He got there, the pump right after mine in 2007 in Iraq. And these guys went on a target, and these guys, I don't know the nuts and bolts of how this got set up or put together, but this guy basically went through the door, and I think he was a number 2 guy. So the first guy that went through, he got killed. There was guys barricaded in there, started shooting AKs, throwing grenades. And first guy got killed. This guy got into the room, and he got shot a few times. But then some of the guys, the other guys in that SEAL platoon heard the explosions, and somebody somehow called Avalanche. So for us, Avalanche is a call we would put out when we see that there's a device in here, like something that's looks like the house is rigged to blow up, because that's something that these guys would do. So you call Avalanche, everybody takes off, which if somebody did see a device, whether there's some guys that are injured or not, it's the right thing to do is to take off, because now, no, I got to stay and help my friend. Well, great. Now all you get is blown up. So if Avalanche comes out, you leave. Everybody takes off. So these guys take off, but now this guy, Mike Day, is still inside. And by this point, he'd been shot 27 times.
Wow.
And didn't die.
Unreal.
And he actually... I guess, moved through the rest of the target, secured, you know what I'm talking about, the rest of the target, and then radioed his platoon and said, hey, idiots, I'm in here, come get me. So these guys came back in, collected him up, got a helicopter in there and got him out. But this guy was, he was doing speaking tours, had a book out, was doing a lot of stuff. But then I don't know what was going on exactly. But I mean, you're gone, man. Like, and at that point, it's almost a hindrance to being anything else. Because who are you? Oh, I'm that guy that used to be this, and now I'm just a guy that got shot a bunch of times, and here I am. I'll tell you about it. That's it. That's I mean, that's quite something. But what is it? What are you today, though? You're a guy that used to be. So when you see that, and then now you don't have that identity. You're just somebody that kind of used to be something. You can kind of expect that person, like, he's going to be on hard times. And we know a few guys that had talked to him and said, hey, you doing all right, man? There's a couple guys that we work with that have gone and done some good programs that helped out with kind of getting their head straight. He said, hey, there's a good program I went to, man, if you want to talk to it. And the guy says, I ain't going to that. That shit breeds weakness. And not long after, like the one gunshot that could kill him, number 28, was by his own hand.
Wow.
So you look at that, like what are the indicators, man? You know, it's sure all those textbook indicators, but use your head. Take a look. Can you see a way where that person you're looking at, maybe they're having a little hiccup, can you see a way where they might feel like, I just can't go on no more? If you think that, probably somebody else thinks that. And probably you should mention something.
It goes back to knowing your people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing the people that are in your community, being a part of the community, having the identity in the community of who you are and maybe not who everybody wants you to be. Because when you're trying to be who everybody wants you to be, it's unfulfilling, right?
Yeah.
You get fulfilled when you're looking at your goals and you're checking them off one by one, and you've created your identity and you're successfully living that out and being a good operator or being a good construction project manager or whatever it might be. So I think there's opportunities for all of us when you see somebody that, like you said, that's in the middle of a hiccup or they've got something that's going on, to just check in, right? It's that easy. Just check in and be like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? And if they divert, right, it's kind of, hey, let's go have lunch, or, you know, let's get out of the workplace. Let's talk about what's going on, or is everything okay in your life? And I feel like for a long time it's not okay to share those things, right? If as I was raised, it's kind of like, man, hey, this is who you are, and if you've got an issue, you got to figure out how to get through it. And sometimes it's hard to ask for help, just like your buddy you're talking about. Maybe something was going on in his life and felt like if he asked for help, that would say that it breeds weakness, right? And it's a stigma inside of the construction community, and definitely inside the community you came from, where it's kind of like, hey, every now and then it's okay to put your hand up and say, hey, look, I've got something going on. I need some help. You know, can somebody jump in here and give me some advice or help me with a coping mechanism to deal with this stress I've got that's causing my mental health to decline, right?
Yeah. One of the, I guess the way you could think of it is I've got another friend that had recently just died of a heart attack, a guy I had worked with. And this guy on a target in Iraq, this guy has one of the best stories I've heard. And this guy went on target, and a lot of these places that you go into, these places are very weird. They're not like, you know, here you walk into a house, you have some expectation of what this is going to look like. You know you're going to walk in, and maybe there's going to be a little entryway and a living room, and if you see a hallway, probably there's bedrooms down there. It's where people sleep, right? And you kind of know what you're going to expect. These places, you walk in there, and you don't know what you're going to get. It could be anything, man. It could be all just one big room. It could be one tiny room, and then a hallway, and another tiny room, and then a big giant room. It's weirdness. So he goes on this target, him and his platoon, and these dudes earlier on, some of these guys they'd get their hands, these guys in, over there, they get their hands on steroids.
Uh-oh.
So they don't lift. They don't know how to eat properly, but they get their hands on steroids. So they just get really big. They look like Pillsbury Doughboy. They're just super puffy. They're just big. And then they get super aggressive. So you go on target, and you go in there, and there he is. He's this big dude. And you're like, what's going on, pal? So this guy, he goes on target, and there's one of these guys, one of these Stay Puft guys. And he's in this little kitchen, so he has to go in there and fetch him out, and it turns into what we call WrestleMania, where the guy wants to fight with you and just wraps up with you. Like, you can't fight. He doesn't know how to fight either. Like, you don't lift, you don't eat right, you don't fight, you're just juiced up. So he goes in there, and it's WrestleMania with this guy, and nobody can get in there to help him because it's this tiny little kitchen, like one of these weird, wonky little rooms, like with this little stove and just this little kitchen space. And everybody's like clamoring, like, how can I get in there? Because there's this giant guy, and now there's a lot of big dudes, but then he's got all this stuff on. There's no room for anybody else to go in there and help him. So Instead, he reaches up onto the counter, and there's a toaster, and he clang, 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 and turns this guy's lights off with a toaster. So this is one of the best stories I had heard. But like the hair-raising part of it was like, one, a toaster. That's a solid check in the box. Like that's nice. But the other part of it is nobody can get in there to help you. So normally we would call prisoner assist. Somebody give me a hand, help me out. Like I got Stay Puffed here and he wants to get it on, right? You got to call for help. But nobody can get in there and help him. And that was every time I had heard the story, whether it's this guy telling the story or somebody else talking about it, that's always the key feature is nobody can get in there and help him. You want to get help, call for help, right? So if you're going along in everyday life and it's you or somebody else and you see them and they need the help, call for the help, man. You would do it at work. You would expect somebody else to do it at work. Hey, I'm trying to lift this heavy, gigantic side of a house. You need a hand over there? No, I'm good.
Yeah, let me do it.
Yeah, call for help, man. Don't try to do that yourself.
So it's a great point, right? You'd ask for it in a physical situation like that, right?
Yeah.
Easily. Just say, hey, somebody help a brother out, right? But in a mental situation, sometimes it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit different. Bill, one thing I love about you is that you've kind of had, like you said, kind of a tough go in the middle 2010s or early 2010s as you were getting out. But what do you think kept you from falling into a funk like that or for getting into a nosedive? What allowed you, or what were your coping mechanisms that helped you have a solid transition from the teams into the APG group, right, that you've been with now 10 plus years and super successful and doing this executive training for, people all over the United States?
Yeah. In some ways, we were just talking about it last night. We went and got dinner, and I'm sitting next to Kevin, and he's talking about, man, they overcooked my steak. And I was like, send it back, dude. And he's like, I'm not as harsh as you are about some of these. And he says, usually you're the one with the bad luck. And I'm like, yeah, usually. But I don't know what it is. I think you and I were having a conversation. We were talking about, guys that just money just gravitates to them and just people just have weird, things like that. And what else can you call it? Just luck. It just is what it is. And I've had people say like, man, you have some of the worst luck. And my son, that's 21 now, he says to me once, he's like, man, what is it with you? I'm like, what? He's like, it's like you're going through life on the hard setting all the time. It's like, yeah, sometimes, man, it is what it is. But I said, I don't mind going through life on the hard setting because he's like a guy that's at the other end where, when this kid was in like junior high, high school, like girls would come to the door to see his new haircut. I'm like, what the hell is this? And he's like, when we moved from San Diego out to South Carolina, and he says, yeah, I'm going to go out here and see about finding a job. I was like, all right, man, good luck. I don't know anybody out here. He's like, nah, I'll be fine. He goes out there, comes back with a job. I'm like, all right, man. So I said, yeah, I don't mind being the guy. I don't mind being the lightning rod if you can get a good deal. But, at the same time, like sometimes where I really should have gotten sledgehammered, it just didn't happen, I've made dumb decisions, or I found myself in really precarious spots where if I had heard this story up to this point from someone else, I would expect someone to be crippled or dead or something. So in that sense, I'm like extremely unlucky on small things, like ordering in a restaurant, but very, very lucky on things like being thrown from moving vehicles or, getting shot at by our own helicopters or this kind of thing. Like, wow. Extremely lucky in that sense. So I'll take that trade-off. But as far as how I got from, like my last deployment to where I am now, essentially unscathed, I'm a little bit salty, but, essentially unscathed. Like my last deployment, and I tell this story at the Flintco event a lot of times, but my last deployment, I got kicked out of an entire country because of some stuff that went on that I was not even, to what degree any of this did or didn't go on, I don't know, because I wasn't even there. But a guy that I had working for me had lined up, and we were doing, some kind of secret squirrel. They call atmospherics. Like, just go be out there and see what the people think. Like, are they going to overrun the base any minute? Just go hang out. So we're in Southeast Asia doing atmospheric collection, and this guy that worked for me had sorted out a meeting with a guy that we were going to meet with in an after-hours bar. So, one, everything there happens in after-hours bars. So whether it's local government or the police or whatever, it's happening in a bar. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to meet this guy in an after-hours bar. And this particular place was really unique because in this country, there's the Muslim population, and they're all extremely separatist, like they want their own government, their own everything. And then there's the rest of the country, and they don't all get along so well. Mm-hmm. And this particular bar on this particular road, like this side of the road is Muslim, that side's not. This particular bar is like ground zero, where you can all come in here, everybody comes in here, but everybody just be cool. And there will be Muslims and non-Muslims in there, and yeah, Muslims going to bars. It's not supposed to happen that way, but it does here. Mm-hmm. What do you want from me? But so we're in there and supposed to be meeting with this guy, and we leave. And long story short, some people chase the guy that's working for me, chase him in his vehicle, chase him on mopeds, and this, I think it was really just a shakedown, like run into the guy and say, "Oh, you run into my car, or you run into my moped, give me $20, sir." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And most of the time, that kind of shakedown happens, and they'll be content with $20. But in this case, they run into the guy, and he takes off, so these people go to the police. And now the police come to the hotel, and now they went to the hotel, they contacted the base and said, "There's some Americans at this hotel," and they called me in the hotel, and I'm like, "Doing what?" And I'm like, out the back, ninja smoke, disappear. We get back, and they're like, "We need to know what's going on." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't tell you everything that's going on here. It's not for you." And they were like, "Okay, well, how about I kick you out of this country then?"
Oh my God! And that's
doing what? And that was it. That was the end of the show. So I got back to the States, and so I just gotten, not fired. You can't really get fired from the Navy, but I had just gotten launched out of a country. So I'm going to be unpopular at work. I got back, and I called my now ex-wife, and I said, "Hey, I just got back. Can you get me at the airport?" "No, get a cab." And I was like, "What?" Come on, man. So I get back to the house, and there's some guy living in my house. And, I tell this story. I say, "Hey, now you think this is as bad as it can get." And people talk about, I ever walk in on a situation like that, I'll start killing people. And I say, "Okay, yeah, that's well and good, but now think it through, friend. Because now that's your kids with no parents, because you're going to get locked up. And so now what? And for what? Okay, so think it through." But so now, like I was saying, like I don't have a cell phone, I don't have a valid driver's license, I don't have anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm like at work there, they were like, "Hey, we'll figure something out, just go home for a while." So now there's that identity where, where I'm James Bond in here, mm-hmm. But no, I'm not. I'm not anything. I am just at the house. I don't even have a place to live. I finally get an apartment, a crummy little apartment. I'm kind of a stranger to the kids because I've been gone forever. Don't have a wife no more. Don't really have a family, per se. I don't have anything, and that hits pretty hard. But now as I'm approaching retirement, that almost works in my favor, that like I can look at that and like, I'll leave that behind. That didn't work out. Mm-hmm. Because if it's something that can be taken from you, is it really yours? So that identity, I'm SEAL team guy, I'm James Bond. When they can come by and like, "No, you're not. Was that ever really yours?" So yeah, it's a job I did. It's a community I was part of. It shaped a lot of who I am. But is that how I'm defined? No, not at all. So stepping out then. That's I was lucky enough to get linked up with Mark, and our organization has expanded and shrinked, and we've been lucky enough to meet just so many really quality people, just really high quality people, that it really outweighs that all that negativity, I guess. And I think that's the thing, you know, is you might hear this saying before, you know, a man is an ever grasping animal, but you're never going to be content. Like, you know, if I could just get this house paid off, or I just get this job, or I just finish this degree, or I just get this, that, or that, and then I'll be set. And as soon as you get that, you know, it's something else. But when you find yourself, you know, you always hear that as a negative, like, don't be, you know, be a little bit content. Okay, there's validity there, but when you find yourself saying, I don't want anything, man, I don't want anything out of life, I got nothing I'm working for, nothing I'm looking forward to, or you see somebody that's in a spot like that, like, hey, what do you got going, man? Nothing, man. You got anything going on at work? No. You do anything this weekend? No, sit at the house. Okay, well, you know, if we know that a natural state for a person is like, I got to accomplish something, you know, even people that are, you know, in their 70s, 80s, you know, like, I'm going to pick up this house. I got some investments I'm looking at, and like, what are you talking about? You know, let me get a look at that watch, you know? Yeah. But, you know, when you see somebody in that position that, like, they're not adhering to that very normal thing, that, like, I got something I want, you know, I got something I'm working on, I've got something I'm trying to accomplish, you know, maybe it's time to speak up.
Yeah, I feel like your story had a good reset point, right? When you got out, there was kind of some things that weren't going your way, and you took that opportunity to say, hey, look, I'm going to make the best out of it, right? And you've linked up with Mark, and here you are today, right? And you stayed out of the funk, right? I had an opportunity that I was telling Kevin about, right, when I was kind of going through a tough time, and my identity was being defined by, like, who other people wanted me to be, right? Hey, we want you to do this, or hey, we want you to do that. And it came to the point where my wife's like, hey, something's got to change, right? And thankfully, it was, you know, 2 months later, I was having lunch with Peter, and Peter says, hey, man, I need you to go to this assignment in Mexico, or I'd like you to do that. And I thought, oh my gosh, Mexico, are you kidding me? I come home and talk to my wife. She's like, yeah, let's do it. It's going to be a great opportunity, right? So it was a great reset for me too, right? We pick up, we move, we live in Yuma, right? And if you've ever been to Yuma, there's it's a good place to be from, I think is what people would say, right? It's not the end of the earth, but you can see the end of the earth from there. And that opportunity for me gave me the chance to reset, right? Gave me a chance to find my value in life as a father, as a husband, and being a friend to my wife as well, right? And being able to hang out with my kids and go on adventures with them, right? We'd never been to Yuma, so everything we did was an adventure, whether it was going to the grocery store, whether it was eating at, they don't have Taco Bell there, right? But eating at their taco shop, whatever it was, or finding
a place. Look at the good taco stuff, though, because it's like Mexicans are making that stuff. It's not, you know, El Grande Gordito fake burrito or whatever. It's just like the real genuine article.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so everything we did was an adventure, right? And it allowed us to grow together. And so, like, when we came back to Austin a couple years later, it gave us an opportunity to stand at arm's length from what other people wanted us to be, right? Yeah. Where we had gotten sucked into many different groups that were taking life from us rather than making those life-giving decisions, right? And now that we're back and have been back for several years, we've been conscious about, hey, let's continue to keep everybody at arm's length that want something from us, so that we can do the things that give us life, that give us meaning, and give us identity, and create the community that is the Oates family down in South Austin.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think I think that like step number one with that is just being able to say, like, maybe I wasn't 100% right about this, that, whatever, about what I'm about in this job, in this life, or the way I approach my family, the way I deal with my kids. Maybe I could do something a little different. Mm-hmm. But it's you know, people don't want to be wrong. And you hear this kind of talk, you know, failure is not an option, this kind of thing. Like, man, you can be wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't mind being wrong at all, because the more I'm wrong, the closer I can get to being right about something. Mm-hmm. You know, but this, I don't know if you know this term, cognitive dissonance. It's the mental discomfort that comes from an inability to reconcile contradictory ideas. Mm-hmm. So like, hey, the way you're dealing with your kids, you don't have to be so short with them. But you say, no, that's the way that my dad did it, and I turned out just fine. I'm just fine, and that's the way I'm going to always do it. And like, yeah, but you're getting negative consequences, and you see it, and you go, I don't want it to happen like this. So I'm going to keep doing the exact same thing and hope I get something different. Like, no, doesn't
work that way.
It just makes it worse and worse and worse. So it's okay to say like, yeah, maybe I was wrong about a couple things. Just do it, man. I do it all the time. I'll do it probably later today. Mark will tell me I did something wrong. Like, oh, yeah, sorry. But yeah, to look at your life though and say, yeah, I could have probably done things better. Like, that's part of getting a little bit older and things making a little more sense.
Right, and be a little reflective on kind of the person you've been or where you've been, and offering yourself a little bit of grace in that, right? Because we've all grown, and we've all grown into somebody who we think we want to be, or maybe who our parents want to be, and then as time gets further along, you're like, hey man, maybe that's not who I want to be. And the great thing is we as human beings have the opportunity to set our own priorities, to work on our own identity, and that, hey, sometimes when you get in a funk, maybe that's the time to look at what those priorities are, what your identity is, and are you living into what gives you life or what you think other people want from you.
Yeah. And just step back, take a breath, and realize not everything has to suck.
That's right. That's exactly right. Allow some room for some greatness in your life, right?
Yeah. Get out there, try it out. You never know,
No doubt. Bill, you're an enlightened dude, man. I appreciate you being here today. I appreciate our time together, and your dedication to helping Flintco stay on the forefront of mental health and offering some great insight for us. So,
man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me out. Look forward to seeing you again.
Yes, sir. Thanks, man.
All right.
It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to ask for help. If you are struggling with suicidal thoughts, or you think someone you know is, please don't wait. Call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. To learn how to get support from mental health, drug, and alcohol issues, visit findsupport.gov. To locate treatment facilities or providers, visit findtreatment.gov or call their national helpline at 800-662-HELP. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.